Wisconsin is trying to bring back Wisconsin football, but here's the weird part. The offense they're building might look almost nothing like the Wisconsin offense you remember, and that is not a contradiction because here on the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, we acknowledge that Luke Fickell and Jeff Grimes clearly want the Badgers to become physical again. They want to run the football. They want the offensive line setting the tone. They've even brought the fullback back into the equation. I love that. Luke Fickell, yes, bring the fullback back. Love it. But when Wisconsin went out and handed the offense to a quarterback who ran more than 1,000 yards last season, that changed every way that I saw this offense because Colton Joseph isn't just a quarterback who can scramble. He rushed for over 1,000 yards last season and 13 touchdowns at Old Dominion. He threw for another over 2,500 yards and 21 touchdowns, and he averaged 6.4 yards per carry. And he became one of the only two quarterbacks in the country with more than 2,000 passing yards and 1,000 rushing yards. So when Wisconsin says it wants to get back to running the football, I think people are imagining the wrong thing here. They're picturing Wisconsin lining it up, handing it off the running back 30 times, and trying to move 5 yards backward. I'm not convinced that's what this is. I think Wisconsin could be trying to rebuild its old identity with an entirely new weapon. And if that's right, and the offense could be one of the strangest and most interesting experiments in the Big Ten this season. Last season, Wisconsin offense was bad. Quarterback issues once again. There's really no reason to sugarcoat that. The Badgers averaged 12.8 yards per game, or points per game, sorry. 12.8 yards. Finished 135th nationally in total offense, 132nd in passing offense, and 116th in rushing offense. Not mediocre, not disappointing by Wisconsin standards. One of the least productive offenses in all of college football, and they still got 2 ranked wins. And that's important because when something fails that badly, you usually don't make little adjustments. You rethink the entire system. You rethink the entire thing. And that's what Wisconsin did and is still doing with Jeff Grimes on the staff. The offensive line was rebuilt, the running back room got deeper, the personnel changed, and most importantly, the quarterback changed, even Colton Joseph, right? And this is where people are going to make the mistake. They're going to hear Jeff Grimes talk about getting Wisconsin back to running the football and think, oh, okay, they're going back to old school Wisconsin. I mean, yes and no. They're going back to the philosophy, not necessarily the offense. Grimes has been pretty clear about what he wants. Wisconsin has to run the football. There's no doubt about it. They have to be able to run the football. The former players who have been around the program have talked about it. Barry Alvarez has talked to the team about it. The history of this program is built around physical football, controlling the games at the line of scrimmage. Grimes has essentially said Wisconsin has to get that back. And I agree with him because somewhere along the way, Wisconsin lost the thing that they used to know they were getting every Saturday. I mean, if you look at the Sports Illustrated cover I got right there, that's the offensive line. Right? You can be more talented than Wisconsin. You can have better receivers. You can have a 5-star quarterback. But Wisconsin should be the team that is going to test whether your defensive front actually wanted to play in the fourth quarter. That's the identity they want to get back to, and that's the identity every fan wants them to get back to, I think, as well. Here's the difference. Colton Joseph gives them a completely different way to create that. Think about the math here. Traditional Wisconsin football asks the offensive line to create movement and let a great running back exploit it. A true running back adds another body to the defense another body that the defense has to account for. Now the backside defender can't automatically crash on the running back. Now linebackers, they have to start hesitating. They can't go downhill. Now you can use zone read, decide quarterback run, power read, bootlegs, RPOs. And when Joseph hands the ball off, the threat that he might not have changed the play, that's what makes this so interesting. And if you look at the FanDuel odds, they find they find it interesting too. Wisconsin sits at plus 10,000 odds to win the Big Ten championship, and that is the top half of the Big Ten above teams like Nebraska, Minnesota, UCLA, and Illinois. And when people are not thinking about here is Wisconsin can become even more committed to running the football while simultaneously becoming less traditional. There was one game from Joseph's 2020 2025 season that Wisconsin fans should really pay attention to, and that's Old Dominion when they played Indiana. Joseph ran the football 10 times, finished with 179 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against Indiana. And after that game, Indiana allowed 100 rushing yards to an opposing team only once the rest of the regular season. Now, that does not mean that Joseph is going to run for 179 yards against every Big Ten defense. Of course not. But it proves something. This isn't fake athleticism. This isn't a quarterback who rushed for 400 yards because 5 busted plays inflated the runs. This guy can legitimately scoot and hurt a defense with his legs. And when you've got that player playing quarterback, the conversation completely changes. But here's the part that actually makes me more interested in Joseph. After Wisconsin's first fall camp practice, Fickell wasn't, raving about Joseph breaking off some ridiculous 60-yard run. He praised him for something much more boring. Taking the easy throws, checking the ball down, being disciplined. And that might be the most important development of all, because Wisconsin does not need Colton Joseph thinking he has to play superhero on every snap. They need the opposite. Hand the football off when the box tells you to, when the box tells you to, take the 6-yard completion, get out of bounds instead of absorbing another hit. And then when the defensive end finally gets greedy, keep it. Keep it. Now, suddenly, the quarterback is 15 yards downfield. That's the nightmare for a lot of defenses. Not randomness, constraint. Wisconsin makes you have to defend the traditional run game, and then Joseph punishes whatever answer you try to come up with. Here's where the whole picture starts kind of coming together in all of this, and that's Wisconsin didn't just add Joseph, they rebuilt the offensive line. They've created a deeper running back room. They have Obusama, Darian Dupree, Brian Jackson gives them a 240-pound option bruiser. Grimes has openly talked about wanting one player to eventually become the bell cow while the others just kind of supplement him. They've also brought in the fullback back into the offense, like I talked about earlier. So imagine the possibilities here. Imagine what can happen. You can line up and have heavier personnel and make the defense respond to what looks like classic Wisconsin. The tight ends, the fullback, the running back, all of those different things. Now put a quarterback back there who can run for 1,000 yards, and that changes defensive assignments on basically everyone. And listen, this is important. Listen, this does not mean Wisconsin is secretly turning into some spread team that throws it 60 times a game. That's not my argument. That's not what I'm saying here. I would look pretty stupid if I was trying to say that here. I actually think the opposite. I think they're trying to become more Wisconsin. They're just realizing you don't have to recreate 2011. You don't have to have Jonathan Taylor or Monty Ball. You don't need Russell Wilson handing it off to Monty Ball. You don't need to pretend college football hasn't changed. The identity of it can stay, and Luke Fickell can meld these two things together instead of just going after what he wanted to go after. Meld these two things together. The mechanism can evolve. Same hammer, different handle. There is one enormous risk, though, that we have to talk about. Johnson ran the football 158 times last season, and this is the thing that has me the most concerned. Wisconsin cannot ask him to absorb that kind of punishment recklessly in the Big Ten and just assume everything will be fine. He added roughly 10 to 15 pounds during the offseason. He's a big boy, and that physical development matters, but Wisconsin still has to be smart. The goal shouldn't be to turn Joseph into a running back. The goal should be to make the defense believe he could become one at any snap, at any time he's holding the ball. There's a massive difference there. If Wisconsin reaches September and Joseph is carrying the ball 20 times a game because nothing else is working, that's a problem, especially because you don't want to keep losing your quarterbacks to injury. If he's carrying it 10 to 12 times, some designed and some improvised, while the possibility of him keeping the ball is creating easier rushing lanes for everybody else. Excuse me. Now you've got something. And there's another piece. Joseph averaged 15.2 yards per completion last season, second in the entire country. So defenses can't simply, just drag everybody into the box and dare them to throw. If Wisconsin finds one legitimate vertical receiver in fall camp, or just somebody that excels at going over in the middle, taking a pass and going upfield with it, the offense becomes considerably harder to solve. Stack the box. Joseph can punish you over the top. Play light, and they're going to run it. Defensive ends crash. Joseph keeps it. Linebacker hesitates, and they hand it off to the back. That's the offense I think Wisconsin is trying to create. And ultimately, this is bigger than one quarterback. Luke Fickell has spent 3 years trying to figure out what the Luke Fickell version of Wisconsin football is supposed to be, and obviously he had some quarterback injuries that didn't actually help with that. The air raid experiment didn't become the transformation people hoped for. Last season bottomed out offensively. Now they're trying something different. Not abandoning Wisconsin's history, not blindly recreating it either. They're taking the fundamental idea, run the football, control the line of scrimmage, make defenses miserable, and adding a quarterback who forces the defense to play 11 on 11. That might be the sneakiest part of this entire offseason. Everybody sees the 1,000 yards rushing and thinks Wisconsin found an athletic QB they can use, but I think it could be bigger than that. I think it could be bigger. Wisconsin may have found the quarterback who finally lets Fickell build an offensive identity that actually fits both modern college football and Wisconsin football. And that's the bet. Right? And if it works, the Badgers aren't going backward. They aren't going anywhere. They're taking the thing that used to make Wisconsin Wisconsin and finally modernizing it. So I want to know what you think, though, down in the comments. Does Colton Joseph finally give Wisconsin the offensive identity that it's been searching for, or are we putting too much pressure on one transfer quarterback to fix it all? Drop your answers in the comments and like and subscribe for more Big Ten football and basketball talk and analysis. We appreciate you being here. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.